Now, I haven't been to Sweden, but I have been to Ikea. Let's make Swedish meatballs, and we can't forget the lingonberry jam.
As per usual, we'll start off with a brown or yellow onion, slice off the tip, slice it in half, peel it, and then we're going to dice this into small pieces. Try and get this as small as possible and trim off any excess flesh from around the root to avoid any waste. Along with that, grate 4 cloves of garlic along a microplane to create a paste. You can also roughly chop it as well. If you do that, just make sure it's nice and fine. Let's then heat a pan over medium-high, add about 1 tablespoon of olive oil and add in that finely diced onion, along with a little pinch of salt as well as some cracked black pepper. Give it all a really good mix through and saute the onions for about 5 to 6 minutes until they become translucent and nice golden colour, and you should have something that looks like this. Then we can remove it from the pan and allow it to cool down for about 5 minutes or so. In the meantime, add 500 grams of beef mince and 250 grams of pork mince into a bowl. That is also 80-20 beef mince, by the way. Add in the garlic, 2 tablespoons of panko breadcrumbs, 3 tablespoons of full fat milk, 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground allspice, also known as pimento. Crack in 1 whole egg. Then we're going to grate about 1/4 of a teaspoon of fresh nutmeg as well. And you can use pre-ground if it's all you have. Add in the diced and cooked onions that we've cooled down a little bit, along with a nice big pinch of salt, as well as cracked black pepper, 20 cracks worth. Then get in there with your clean hands, mix up all of that meat. You should have this nice big clump of meat, and the more you work it, the harder it is going to get. And that is exactly what we want. We don't want this to be loose, just because it will fall apart when you cook it. Now, once you have that done, I recommend weighing the whole amount and then divide it by how many meatballs you want. You should get about 16 to 20 meatballs out of this, and that depends on the size. If my camera decides to finally focus, I might be able to show you the size that I'm using, and I actually ended up getting about 16 meatballs out of this. You will also get more if you make them a lot smaller. I know that traditional Swedish meatballs are quite small, but try and pack these as much as you can. That way they will hold together when you cook them. And don't do what I did and think that the tray's full and then decide to use another tray and only get 4 more. Just waste of dishes. Don't be like me if you've learned anything from this video. Now that we've got that all done, in the same pan that we cooked the onions in, over medium-high heat, add in another 1 tablespoon of olive oil, then add in the meatballs. I recommend doing this in batches if you don't have a large pan and a powerful stovetop, because you will just end up stewing the meat and you won't get that nice golden crust. I'm going to sear these for about 5 to 6 minutes, just turning them over, browning them on all sides, and once that's done, remove them and just place them onto a tray to rest. Don't need to cover them, and repeat with any remaining batches. Reduce the heat of the pan to medium, add in 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been cubed and give it a whisk around to allow it to melt. And once it is melted, we're going to add in 4 tablespoons of plain all-purpose flour. What this is going to create is our roux, and we're going to mix this through and cook this for about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to cook out that flour taste. This is going to thicken up, and this is a natural thickening agent that restaurants do use to thicken sauces. And we're also making a brown roux, which means taking it to a really dark color without burning it. Increase the heat of the pan to medium-high and add in 1 2/3 of a cup of beef stock. Mix this all through really well, and that thickening agent or the roux is going to thicken that beef stock. It's also going to deglaze the pan as well, ripping up any flavors that may be stuck. And we're going to cook this for about 2 to 2.5 minutes until it has a nice thick consistency. Let's then add in 2/3 of a cup of thickened cream, also known as whipping cream, 2.5 teaspoons of soy sauce, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, and 1.5 teaspoons of Dijon mustard to create that really nice depth of flavor. Give it all a really good mix through. You'll notice that traditional Swedish meatball color starting to form. It is then a good idea to just taste and double check the seasoning, adjusting if necessary with salt and cracked black pepper. I did end up adding a little bit more of both. Add the meatballs back in along with any resting juices. Turn them around a couple of times just so they can pick up the flavor of the sauce, as well as the meatballs releasing their flavor into the sauce. We're going to cook this for about 3 to 4 minutes, allow that sauce to thicken. This is also going to allow the meatballs to finish off cooking because that initial sear wouldn't have cooked them the whole way. And after 3 to 4 minutes, the meatballs are cooked through. The sauce is delicious. We can hit it up with a little bit of flat leaf parsley, which is completely optional. It's just roughly chopped. Then remove it from the stovetop. Now, the amount of serves you're going to get out of this depends on how big you made your balls and of course how hungry you are. This recipe will easily serve 3 people, 4 if you're pushing it maybe, but it does serve 3 comfortably. And once you have them in, make sure you top it with that delicious creamy gravy. There is so much flavor going on in there, and it's a good idea to drown them a little bit. If you wanted to, hit it up with a little bit more flat leaf parsley, and of course some cracked black pepper. And what we've just created is these Swedish meatballs. They're delicious, they smell fantastic, and they look brilliant too.
With everything done, there is one thing left to do, and that is of course we can then dig in. There's quite a few flavors going on in here, but it balances out really well. The creaminess of the sauce, you know, I love cream sauces, just goes perfectly with this. And then the flavor in the meatballs has also put itself into that sauce just to increase its flavor even more. Meatballs are really soft, not falling apart. They have held their shape and they have that nice little sear on the outside. This is actually a really delicious dish, and you can serve it with whatever you want: mash, pasta, rice, or just leave it plain and simple like this.